The blade vault door swung wide. Crisp, iron-charged air smacked them in the face. The sword racks along the walls were mostly empty, just scabbards dominating the view, maybe 20 or 30 blades left, each sealed in its sheath, dead silent. Kaelan's eyes skipped right over them. They locked onto the one displayed horizontally at the far end, a dhow nearly 5 feet long, broad and thick as a scaled-down city gate. The grip was stout, long enough for both hands with room to spare. It lay cradled on its stand, sheathed, but a crushing weight poured off it. Not a weapon, a hunting beast holding its breath, ready to wake at the slightest quiver. His throat bobbed, the blade from his dreams. It was right here, in front of him. Eilian stood beside him, catching that transfixed stare. Her voice came soft, hesitant. Eldest brother Zhang Zhaoyu, like this one, isn't it too big? He forced himself to look away, voice tight. It is. Not a blade I can wield right now. Banked heat simmered beneath the words. Not right now, but there would be a later. Eilian chewed her lip, thinking. Then she reached up, took down a dhow whose shape and weight almost matched the one he used to carry, and pressed it into his hands. Use this for now. Her eyes darted toward Copper Hall, a fidgety spark in them. Kaelan ignored the odd behavior. He hefted the blade, drew it half an inch cold, light bit his eyes, sharp enough to shear a floating hair. The banquet lay set in lakeside pavilion. Candle shadows swayed over a few exquisite dishes. Eilian sat at the head, no aura leaking, yet to Kael, and he felt like a deep pool. One wrong breath and he'd drown in the man's Kai resonance. The blood, Kill Kai, coiled inside him stirred, answering on its own. Eilian's tone was flat, like discussing tea heat, the baleful Kai of the bloodshed art. This old man can purge it for you, but then your blade momentum loses its murderous ferocity. It'd cripple the foundation that let you rampage, trade one for the other. You decide. Kaelan's brows locked, the blood Kai in his meridians roiled like a dark current. Those words woke it. His mind flashed to desperate battles, baleful Kai flooding his blade edge, flare surging mad, that raw, savage exhilaration. He shook his head, no trade. Eilian nodded slightly, like he'd expected it. That art of yours might be the root form of the blood kill school, the blood god cult's blood god art. That looks like a step backward dodging liabilities. Its upper limit might fall short of what you're cultivating now. Kaelan's head snapped up. Senior, you're certain. Eilian lifted his cup for a light sip, gaze sweeping like candlelight. Can't you sense it yourself? A mere third, stage profound gate confronting Nile the suppression and phantasms you forced out. Is that something a third, stage cultivator could do? If the blood god art truly surpassed it, Alaric wouldn't have failed to even hold a place on the mortal chart. The words hit, his baleful Kai surged fiercely, then sank back into his dantian. That dull ache that had tormented him, it seemed to dissolve a little. Not gone, but his heart steadied with certainty. He exhaled, tightened his grip on the new blade. The bloodshed art would walk with him a long time. If cultivated to its end, could it smash through the 9th profound gate and glimpse the secret treasury? Eilian drew a pill from his sleeve, held it out. Kaelan took it. Faint coolness on his fingertips, no bigger than a thumb. Joint, a shifting layer of spectral light over its surface. What is this? A treasure that remolds the root bone, washes the marrow, reforges the meridians, met, not sought. Eilian clasped his hands behind his back, voice casual. Young heirs of prominent families aren't all born with excellent root bones. They find ways to improve. This pill strengthens meridian's resilience, raises your endurance. Kaelan looked up. What's the difference? Widening the meridians versus reinforcing their resilience. Your meridians are a stream, fit for so much water. Widen them, you contain a rushing river, but a river needs sturdy embankments or it bursts, a stream. Embankments. Kaelan nodded. Even if destiny later granted him a chance to broaden his meridians, without resilience, he'd just stare and sigh. This pill wasn't a root cure, it was groundwork. Eilian stood to the side, mouth opening, then swallowed her words. No more questions, he raised his hand, placed the pill in his mouth. It touched his tongue and transformed, scalding slurry plummeting down his throat. Not warm water, but magma. The medicinal force plunged into his dantian like boiling oil on a raging fire. His body convulsed. A stifled groan tore from his throat. The scorching current detonated, spreading madly along his meridians, a red, hot brand searing every inch. Agony nearly ripped his consciousness apart. But in that pain, his meridians transformed. Scorched membranes emitted dense sizzles, common iron being quenched. Fragile, thin walls tightened, condensed under the heat, surfaces glossing with a faint, glassy luster. Eilian's robes snapped and rustled. A formless ripple of true Kai erupted from Kaelan, sweeping several feet. He'd guided the medicinal force to merge with his blood, kill true Kai. Deep within a blood, flame lit. The blood-hued Trukai, a furious blood dragon, enveloped the magma flow and slammed the profound gate barrier. Once, twice, thrice explosive cracks of bone and sinew rang out. Fine blood, beads seeped from his skin, hit the air, and vaporized into pale crimson mist, coiling around his form. A sharp light flared in Eilian's eyes, but he kept his hands behind his back, watching silent. The blood dragon roared. Under dual onslaught, the profound gate barrier emitted a crisp crack. The blood mist retracted inward, and a rumbling resonance rose from his body like a river in full surge. Trukai coursed and reverberated through his reinforced meridians, still a stream in scale, but now with the foundation to bear a deluge one day. Kaelan's face went pale, her knuckles bone, white tinged blue. Eilian shot her a glance. Your father stands right here, not your place to be startled and frantic. Kaelan dropped her head. Eilian's voice dropped low, each word landing like iron. The decade, plus you've squandered, you don't even qualify to act as his advisor now. If you were competent, you could assist him. Then why would he need to set aside his pride and come flattering this old man with smiles? Kaelan bit her lip. I'll start training now too. A trace of gratification surfaced in Eilian's eyes. Her talent was acknowledged across the clan. She mastered everything in one lesson. She just refused to train. But she'd been building a foundation since childhood. If she truly awakened now, the heights she could reach were boundless. 3 years on the mortal chart. He truly didn't believe Kaelan could manage it. Even with the entire QE family's resources poured onto him, it looked uncertain, but that didn't diminish the glimmer of astonishment in his gaze. This boy's speed in harnessing blood. Kill Trukai was just too fast. He turned, brushing his sleeves, about to leave. Right then, on the couch, Kaelan opened his eyes. In their depths, a sea of scarlet blood churned for an instant, reflecting onto Kaelan's face, turning it pale. The blood color submerged back in a heartbeat. His presence deepened, grew heavier. Faint, crisp cracks resounded in his sinews, tempered steel quenched. Eilian halted, spun back. Astonishment streaked his eyes, then sank into ancient well-indifference. He sized up Kaelan, tossed down a remark light as breeze. Blood, kill 4th stage, barely passable, still lacking the proper heat compared to when this old man was young. Don't get arrogant. He clasped his hands behind him and drifted out of the room. The medicinal fragrance lingering in the air hadn't thinned when Kaelan pushed himself upright. He traded a glance with Kaelan. A small smile passed between them. They lifted their chopsticks and ate. Every time they caught each other's eye, there it was, steady and quiet. A soft shuffle at the door. Oren stepped in, took one look at the scene, and nearly spun right back around. He forced himself to the table, poured a cup of wine, and let out a rasping laugh. Zhao asked me a little while ago where I'd been. Did you actually think I helped my sister run? Kaelan's expression tightened. Kaelan said nothing. Oren knocked back the wine in a single swallow. She slipped out of my hands twice. Anyone would be suspicious, but if I were really the one pulling strings. Would I torch my own future and beg for a mountain of trouble? He paused, voice dipping lower. That night I backtracked the whole route. Searched like a madman for days. I even tracked you to your city, only you'd already crossed the ridges, so we missed each other. His tone scraped raw. He refilled the cup. Kaelan stayed quiet a beat, then nodded. Brother QE, no need to defend yourself any further. I only asked in passing, this mess. It has nothing to do with you. Kaelan's hand closed softly over Kaelan's. Second brother, we trust you. Oren let out a long breath, and the tension in his face unlocked a fraction. When the triple hall adjudication convenes, I'll have to stand before the council. Do you want to attend? Kaelan's gaze sharpened to a blade's edge. He spoke each word deliberately. Of course we'll go. Whoever wants Yanyong dead, we're dragging them into the light. Moonlight lay cold and bone, white. Inside the QE ancestral shrine, candle flames shivered. Kaelan and Kaelan followed Eilian through the entrance, and in that instant, every clan elder's stare locked onto them. The air itself collapsed, gaze after gaze, struck with the tangible heft of a sword's edge, a pressure that thickened the throat. Shadows jumped, flared, guttered. Kaelan's robe stirred, but his frame never shifted under the layered weight bearing down. He stood like a dull knife still sheathed. Silent, anchored. In the center of the floor, Oren stood shoulder to shoulder with another young man, sickly. Pale face, failing color. Dinarb QE, Kaelan's third brother, the prime suspect. Around them, the highest-ranking patriarchs of Clearwater's QE clan had gathered almost in full. Even the commandery governor, Dinarb QE, sat stiff with solemnity. No one spoke, only the tiny pop of burning candle wicks. Eyes stayed nailed to Kaelan. The unspoken pressure unique to cultivators who'd climbed past the 8th or 9th stage of the profound gate, maybe even secret treasury elites, seeping frost straight into the marsh. Oh, without so much as flexing their aura. Kaelan's lips only curved faintly. A clan elder's voice dropped heavy. The trail could not be more obvious. The Salt Gang's hall master confessed that Yuan Cheng issued the bounty. Then he bit down on poison and died, and precisely because the dead can't speak, Yuan Yong is just as suspect now. Oren's tone stayed level. When my little sister fled, I was still traveling home. If this was plotted in advance, did the bounty notice somehow predict my return? Do my uncles truly think I'm an idiot? Silence swallowed the hall. Every lead dead-ended. Forward or backward, no path. All eyes cut to Eilian's face. Kaelan's brows pulled tight. There was a different scent behind this whole production. Their real target was almost certainly the Clearwater sword. Eilian, who had held his silence until now, finally spoke, bringing out the sword. I agree, but one matter gets settled first. Everyone present bowed. Patriarch, please instruct us. Why does every strand of suspicion fall on Yuan Yong and Yuan Cheng, as though every last cousin, uncle, and elder in this hall is lily, white and pure? Eilian's gaze swept the room. Like a whetted edge. Who has been steering the wind, leading a pack of fools by the nose? Plenty of faces stiffened with guilt. Eilian's laugh came out cold. If only my two direct sons are tested, the divine sword won't speak. It will simply choose one and strike him dead. I'd lose a son for nothing, and he'd die wearing a false grievance since we're bringing out the sword. Every single person will be tested, right here, right now. The one whose heart hides the deepest shadows. That's the true murderer. Dinab Qiu hesitated. Eldest brother Jiang, the blade vault is tight. If we go in batches, how can any judgment hold? I can control the sword. It will withhold its verdict until every person has made contact. Then it will erupt all at once. Eilian offered nothing else. He flicked his sleeve and rose. Go, summon your people. Assemble outside the blade vault. Yuan Yong, Kaelan with me. He strode straight from the ancestral shrine. Eilian caught Kaelan's eye, and they hurried after. The blade vault was darkness like ink. Thick stone walls swallowed every scrap of sound from the outside. The air hung dense and weighty as quicksilver. Each breath met resistance, pressing inward against the lungs. No lamps burned. On the altar platforms to either side, only the outlines of blades gleamed cold light, bleeding from the dark, like restless spirits growing straight out of the stone. Before they could even make out the sacred weapons, a ferocious intent crashed into them, majestic, all-pervasive. It bled in from every direction, needles of ice, piercing flesh and bone at once. Kaelan and Eilian shuddered together. Eilian stood before the sword rack, hands clasped behind his back, eyes lowered to the blade as if he'd slipped into a trance. Eilian stole a look at her father. Understanding clicked. Silent permission. She nudged Kaelan softly, rose on tiptoe, and breathed in his ear, "Go and touch the saber. If it rejects you, stop immediately." Kaelan's gaze had already locked onto the far altar. The great Zia Dragon-Sparrow lay across its scabbard. Fluid dragon patterns shimmered faintly along the sheath, breathing in the gloom like something alive in deep slumber. Even sheathed, a tyrannical aura that commanded all beneath heaven radiated outward. The blade vault itself seemed to bow a notch lower before this single weapon. He stepped forward, slow. His fingers hadn't yet brushed the hilt when his skin sensed the invisible barrier, a dense, threatening wall of resistance that seared and bit, stinging numbness shooting from his fingertips into his meridians. Rejection. Kaelan didn't pull back. His 5 fingers clamped down hard. A violent scorching pain exploded through his palm, as if he'd seized a fistful of congealed flame. The sting detonated, surging up his arm. The blade let out a low, rumbling resonance, like some colossal beast cracking open its eyes. Kaelan's body jolted, then he shut his eyes. Eilian stopped breathing. Even her heartbeat stumbled silent. The moment Kaelan's hand closed around the saber, his spirit quaked. There was no rejection. What roared up from the hilt was a thrum of eager, exultant welcome. He reflexively channeled his inner reserves to push back, and the great blade erupted with heat. A torrential will, vast as the river of heaven pouring in reverse, crashed into his sea of consciousness. In the east, the azure dragon coiled across the vault of heaven, green scales bristling. Every breath spawned rain, sent grass and trees bursting into wild growth. In the southern sky, the vermilion bird spread its wings inside a storm of flame, blaze swallowing the 8 wildernesses. Yet from beneath the ash, fresh shoots cracked through. Life and death, spring and autumn, shifting with a single thought. Mountains and rivers sprawled boundless. The blade's decree brooked no defiance. Where its edge pointed, that was imperial earth and heaven itself. Armies clashed, teeming throngs bled. Deep in his sea of consciousness, 2 ancient guilt characters blazed to life. Dragon-Sparrow. Great Zia Dragon-Sparrow. Kaelan's heart convulsed. This wasn't an artifact spirit, it was the blade's own intrinsic will to imperial conquest.
The dragon ruled life, the sparrow governed death.
Life and death entwined had forged this divine weapon. It thirsted to drink blood, scorned being sealed away in dust. Forbade the touch of common hands. A mere mortal, daring to lay hands on us. In that same instant, a wisp of killing intent seeped silently through the chamber, cool and furtive as a viper flicking its tongue. The azure dragon wheeled its head. The vermilion bird's twin pupils congealed with baleful wrath. Kaelan's eyes snapped open, his gaze electric, locked dead onto a young Kiwi clan member off to the side. The man was faking an attempt to touch the Clearwater sword, but his sideways glance licked across Kaelan's neck like a blade. The great Dragon-Sparrow went berserk. Inside the blade vault, the air detonated, the saber erupted in a blaze of crimson, gold light, a dragon's roar and phoenix's cry shot up from the earth. Sound waves, near solid, slammed against the stone walls. The whole chamber shuddered hard, every candle flame snuffed out in the same breath. Only the saber's radiance remained flickering, carving Kaelan's face into plains of ice.
Angry, are you? Kaelan stared at the man, voice cold as broken glass. I blocked your scheme against Yong, so now you're killing intents aimed at me.
The man stumbled back half a step, alarm flaring. What raving nonsense! Kaelan wasted no more words. The great Dragon-Sparrow had already judged the killing intent. That was all he needed. The great blade tore into motion. The blade howled, a crescent of crimson, gold aura slashing outward, shredding the last candle flames. Darkness swallowed the chamber whole. Only that searing gleam cleaved downward, splitting the air with a thunderous crack, swift as lightning. Fierce as a dragon tiger. Palm strikes exploded from every direction. The clan elders, all ninth, gate cultivators lashed out in unison, their dense kai surging like sacred peaks. The blows slammed into the saber's flank. But the great Dragon-Sparrow was no toy for mortals to bar. The blade bucked, recoil force erupted like a tidal wave of rage, blasting stone walls inward. Masonry groaned and cratered. Elders reeled, crashing against the chamber in graceless heaps, shock frozen on their faces. The half-inch deflection saved his life. The edge merely kissed the man's robes. He'd thrown himself backward on instinct, tumbling out of the saber chamber drenched in cold sweat. Kaelan, the man white-faced, veins bulging, jabbed a trembling finger. You're conspiring with your two brothers-in-law to frame me. You're all muddying the investigation. Outside the blade vault, the crowd surged. Dinarb Kiwi shoved through, steadied his son Nelav Kiwi, and leveled a glacial stare into the chamber. Eldest brother Jiang, are we holding a treason trial at Clear River, or a temper tantrum for that Dragon-Sparrow? Inside, Eilian raised a hand. The elders halted. His gaze drifted from Kaelan to his own baffled daughter, and a strange, knowing smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. This was better than the original plan. He lifted his sword and walked out into the moonlight, voice even. This old man owes the clan an apology. There was a deception just now. Silence clamped down. Eilian's tone was deliberate, unhurried. A sword is dead iron, relying on its spirit alone to judge treachery. If a mistake cost bloodkin, how could I bear it? The true test never lay with that spirit. He swept his gaze over the assembly. Moonlight carved out the depth in his eyes. The chamber was dark, the scabbard was black. I coated it with powder beforehand. A clear conscience touches the sword, leaves a mark. A guilty mind shields the hand with inner reserves, seeming to grasp, but never truly making contact. That smile again, gaze coasting slowly toward Nelav Kiwi. A trial of the heart, no divine oracle needed. The historical annals record such methods. I'm sure you've all read them. Graveyard stillness. Nelav Kiwi froze, color leached from his face, cold sweat beaded his forehead under the lamplight like strings of rain. Eilian's voice warmed. Now you understand. Extend your palms, let us see what they bear. Oren and Dinarb Kiwi flipped their hands up without hesitation, stained black, not filth, just the divine blade's residue. The other young cultivators exchanged glances, then opened their hands one by one, dark smudges, everyone in varying shades. Only Nelav Kiwi stood rooted, face paper, white, hands locked behind his back, body shrinking half a step behind his father's robes. That half step skewered him. An elder sighed. I witnessed it. When Yuan Teng touched the sword, he made a show of openness, but he wrapped his hand in reserves, never made contact. Dinarb Kiwi's expression curdled. He spoke slowly. Eldest brother Jiang, the logic holds, but it's skewed. Yuan Teng's been unruly since childhood, bullying, debauchery, maybe. Guilty enough to fear divine judgment. That doesn't brand him a sororicide. Before Eilian could answer, Nelav Kui craned his neck and spat. I don't accept Kaelan ranking on the hidden dragon list.
I don't accept that a bandit like him dares covet Young. Young, plenty of us loathe him. Is that proof?
Dinab Kui nodded. Exactly.
A scoff from the Blade Vault entrance sliced him off.
Kaelan strode out Dragon-Sparrow resting across his shoulder. His scarred face was a savage mask in the moonlight.
Patrician crap, all this jabbering. I don't care who the rat is. That killing intent came at me. Deny that.
Nelav Kui sneered. And if I do?
You wanted me dead. That's personal. Kaelan drove the Dragon-Sparrow into the stone with a ringing clang, then drew his newly issued waist saber. If you're a man, crawl out from behind Daddy's robes and face me. The Kui family's martial name. Did you piss away even that shred of courage? Nelav Kui's eyes glittered with malice. What hero hides behind Dragon-Sparrow? Without that blade, you're just a bandit. Kaelan laughed, scabbard held horizontal. Killing you with Dragon-Sparrow would taint the treasure. Come. Eilian's voice carried a smile. Kaelan is an interested party. Let us stand back and enjoy the show. Wench, your thoughts?
Dinab Kui's face went blank. Since eldest brother Jung insists, if this man dies by Yuan Teng's hand, don't let Yong come wailing later.
Kui Yonna's sidelong glance swept her uncle, then her cousin. She said nothing. Her eyes spoke of corpses. A clearing opened. Kaelan stood loose beside the Dragon-Sparrow. Nelav Kui drew his sword blade shimmering cold as water. Hate boiled off him. Without this bandit, none of this would have happened.
Die!
With an explosive roar, Nelav Kui lunged. Sword. Light spilled like moonlight on the clear river, coiling through mist and cloud, myriad forms shifting. Azure Mountain unleashed.
An elder started murmuring the technique's name. He never finished.
Metal shrieked. Kaelan's saber tore from the scabbard, spraying searing sparks. The edge keened, a wail that nearly pierced eardrums. No one saw him arrive. That blade was already descending on Nelav Kui's skull, as if the fool had thrust his own neck into the path mid-technique. Azure Mountain, concealing green waters. With one slash, I'll cleave the damn mountain in half. Nelav Kui's pupils shrank to pinpoints. He wrenched his sword up to block. Clang, the sword bent in a perilous arc, humming with agony. He stumbled back, wrist dead.
Yuan Teng, beware.
Dinab Kui shot forward. Eilian's sword intercepted. Smile in place. A junior's bout. Why the panic, wench, you?
Nelav Kui's gaze snapped up as he reeled. Against the blade vault's candle glow, a towering figure descended from above. Kaelan, demon or god, the waist saber reflecting leaping blood. Flame. Before the blade arrived, the killing intent crushed down, air congealing like tar. The scent of iron flooded the senses. Gods and Buddhas scatter. In Nelav Kui's vision, that scarred face plunged through crimson glare, pupils swallowing nothing but the icy saber tip. His heart pounded like a war drum. His legs trembled uncontrollably. When you killed Yuan Yang, did you picture this moment? The roar hammered down. Nelav Kui's soul scattered. His knees buckled, a shriek tearing from his throat, spit flying. She isn't even dead. Don't kill me.
Deathly silence iced the courtyard.
The blood, moon saber light receded. Cold steel rested against his neck.
Kaelan's lips curled. Patrician scion, is it? Beating trash like you isn't even worth a footnote in my chronicle of chaos. Dinab Kui's face had turned to ash where he stood blocked. Then understanding hit. No farce, no reckless stunt. Kaelan had planted his blade and issued the challenge solely to crush a wastrel with overwhelming saber pressure, ripping confession from under a life, and death press. Ironclad evidence, it just delivered itself. Eilian's voice drifted, unhurried. Second brother, what were you thinking? A closer look shows the whole plot stinks of a fool's hand.
Dinab Kui was silent a moment, then he smiled.
All pretense torn, directness would serve. His stare fixed on Eilian, each word a deliberate nail. You lost the Clearwater sword. What face do you have left to sit in the family head seat? Kaelan's mind snapped clear. This bastard's aim, from the very start, was the Clearwater sword.
The whole accusation reeked of setup, a murder between brothers, clouded in fog. Anyone in the Kui clan would reach for the Clearwater sword first thing.
That's exactly what Dinab Kui counted on. Get the blade out in the open. Prove it was faltering, then Eilian would fall from grace. No matter how high he ranked ninth, on the heavenly chart clan rules held stronger. Dinab Kui had stacked the deck. He'd steered the whispers, pinning everything on the brothers Oren Dinab Kui. If Eilian shielded his son and played the long game, the next fight for family head would crack wide open. If Eilian saw through the ruse and cast a wider net, well, there was no dodging the Clearwater sword then.
The blade state would be laid bare.
A textbook countermove.
Eilian didn't shield his son. He threw Oren straight into the dungeon, watched with cold, calculating eyes. He knew who stirred the pot, who screamed loudest. He'd taken their measure. That tale about touching the sword, even if his boy had done it, with the power of the ninth on the heavenly chart, hiding the black ash, was child's play. No evidence left. Without Kaelan, he could have calmed the storm. At worst, he'd miss a key piece, and the two factions would just tear at each other longer. Now, no need for tearing. Eilian chuckled, a dry, soft sound. Clearwater sword lost. What nonsense. With a flick of his wrist, the sword left his grip. The moment blade parted palm, a clear luminescence surged, not light. It was an arcane aura, half liquid, half mist, coursing down the spine like moonlit dew coalescing on the edge. An invisible force cradled it. It didn't fly. More like an unseen hand lifted it in solemn offering. Air warped faintly in its path. Night breeze fled aside. On the stone slabs below, a faint trail of radiance flashed like a stream gone in a heartbeat. High above, clouds tore, not a slow scatter. Ripped like a curtain wrenched apart, the moon burst through. A pillar of moonlight cascaded, pinpoint on the flying sword. Luminescence and moonlight mirrored. The blade went translucent as jade, a starry river wheeling within. Copper Hall hummed. The sword hit its stand. The four walls quivered, emitting a lingering note, struck jade, chiming outward, rippling across the night sky. The clan elders shook. One voice cracked. If this isn't a divine sword, what is? Wenj, you're blind with greed, slandering your brother. Spinning lies about the sword. Your crimes deserve 10,000 deaths. Dinab Qiu didn't argue. He just laughed. A soft heh. A sleight of hand, that was Eilian's power. The ninth under heaven's glory, not the swords. With this ironclad show, he couldn't press for more. Eilian could act lofty now. The divine sword wasn't a circus act. Who was worthy of demanding it? The scheme was ashes. Dinab Qiu spoke calmly. Eldest brother Jiang, you know in your heart what I mean. Eilian's tone stayed cool. What I know is this. If you truly acted for the family, you'd never stoop to this. What more need be said? Dinab Qiu nodded. Eldest brother Jiang is right. Seraph Qiu's voice rolled out slow, heavy, filling the hall. Dinab Qiu, Nelav Qiu. Kin slaughtering kin, framing the young, scheming to seize the family head. Under family law, strip them of all duties. Seal them in the heavenly prison until the council decides. The branch of Dinab Qiu, expelled entirely, exiled to the northern frontier. The prefect of Clear River Post. I'll select a worthy replacement myself and petition His Majesty to approve. Dinab Qiu's face drained. He let out a long sigh, said nothing. Kaelan's eyes contracted sharply. A commandery prefect aboard a offending official, dismissed at will. Replaced on a whim, act first, report later, no need for the emperor's nod. Was Clear River their family estate, a top-tier clan? In peaceful times it might mean little. Let chaos rise. This was a regional hegemon, poised to vie for the realm at any moment. Why heed the emperor's face? What the great Zia Dragon-Sparrow meant, sitting here, he suddenly understood. Eilian turned, glanced at him, grinned, letting our guest watch this farce. Young. Yana had been dazed. She jolted. Take our guest to my study. I'll wrap up loose ends and join you. Got a few things to discuss. Yana's heart hammered. Eilian's study, the last outsider welcomed, was the Wang clan head of Jadestone. She ached to dash back, grab those gossiping women by the ears, and show them. Could this ruffian step into her boudoir? He was stepping into the Qiu main study. The study breathed quiet elegance. Kaelan couldn't name the precious implements, but he caught their warm, lustrous glow. The furnishings, dignified, unrestrained, a subtle fragrance in the air. Yana seemed reborn. She perched before the desk, brewing tea. Water sleeves rolled gently up. Fingertips skimmed the tea scoop. Movements flowed, clouds drifting, water streaming. Not a trace of that earlier sweet, clumsy air. She was the image of a gentle, refined noble daughter. Kaelan watched amused. What are you staring at? She dared raise no voice. Her murmur scolded softly. This is guest treatment proper. You think Young has no manners. I practiced. Yes, you practiced. He nearly laughed out loud. So, what's the tea? By Liu Chun, obviously. Another thing from his old world. Kaelan's mind wandered for a moment. Gong Fu Ti had surfaced. His tea roasting scheme for money was half dead. But he knew, stepping into this study today, they'd talk about those very things from across worlds. Yana sighed low. I never imagined it'd be second uncle. He's so vital to the family. That post not easily replaced. His influence runs deep. Father must have a massive headache now. Kaelan gathered his thoughts. I expected it. Had to be someone that high. No one else could stage a power grab. Why did others focus on your brother? Because lesser people can't pull it off. Their schemes would be useless.
Her voice dipped even lower, but I still don't get what were they really after. If I'm not mistaken, your father's the true imperial loyalist. His Majesty's man, your second uncle, probably beguiled by rebels. The ultimate target wasn't the Kiwi family, it was Great Zia. A bright laugh burst from the doorway. I'm a bit torn. Eilian strode in. Part of me pegged you for a wanderer, rivers and lakes, vivid silks, spirited horses. Another part senses political chops. Wading into court might not be out of the question. Kaelan didn't budge. Please spare me, my weight. Tangled in court affairs, old foxes like you would devour me, not a sliver of bone left. Eilian settled across from him, took the tea his daughter offered, sipped deeply satisfied. He drawled, so your ambitions in the martial world. You've dodged all those identity talks, but now, face it a little. Face what? Eilian savored his tea, steam curling. Great Zia Dragon-Sparrow, do you want it? Light exploded deep in Kaelan's eyes. Could he truly take it? He drew a breath. If I'm not wrong, this saber was brought out to replace Clearwater Sword's role. Uncle shouldn't let anyone carry it off. Kiwiana's hand jerked, tea splashed. She stared at her father in shock. Second uncle's accusation was true. Clearwater Sword's power had faded. He was bluffing with the Dragon-Sparrow alone. Eilian's face stayed untroubled. He admitted openly, that's right, but what he said isn't entirely accurate. Clearwater Sword wasn't lost, the blade's the same. The numinous marvel inside gone. Now it's just a sword that can shear iron, can't shoulder that weight of meaning. If someone called it fake, would be hard to argue. Kaelan's voice was measured. The blade is still the blade. That alone carries the weight of its name. Whether the old power lingers or not, maybe that even frees you to swing it exactly how you want. Eilian smacked his hands together and laughed. That's the spirit. But people like you are rare. Pull out a lifeless Clearwater Sword, and the Kiwi family would be the first to choke on their own shame. Kiwiana's head lifted. Her face was pure disbelief. This was always coming. Eilian's tone stayed calm. Truth is, I saw the signs over 10 years back, when I carried that blade through the martial world. These last years, the power just drained. Nothing left. He paused, voice flat as a still pond, like he was telling someone else's story. A divine blade has a spirit. What did it gather for? That will, to settle the seas, to scour the wicked. How could it stomach, staying in the grip of men like us? That it didn't turn around and cut us down was mercy enough. Why would it ever bow to our whims? It went back to where it belonged, only natural. Kiwiana had been frozen in shock. Now she went quiet. Lo, she murmured, it had every right to. I, Eilian, won't pretend I'm worthy of the Clearwater Sword. And how many in the Kiwi family actually know their own limits? His gaze slid toward the twilight beyond the hall, his voice cooling by degrees. The blade's spirit is gone, and they never even ask themselves why. They claw at power and coin with the same petty greed the sword despised most. If any spirit still clung to it, it would weep. Kiwiana pressed her lips into a thin line and said nothing, but Eilian's mouth curled into a grin. He veered the talk away from the Clearwater Sword and onto the Great Zia Dragon-Sparrow. The Dragon-Sparrow. That's the saber His Majesty used to carve out the realm. It's savage, overbearing, won't tolerate a single hair of defiance. Sometimes you'd swear it's like a child with no cunning at all, set off by the smallest spark. That's the blade's true nature. Without that fire, it could never hold a will so tyrannical. Kaelan gave a nod. He knew exactly what Eilian meant. The blade's reactions were almost petulant, but for a treasured saber's intent, nothing fit better. And then, from the deep of his sea of consciousness, a sliver of memory flickered, the hilt pulsing in his palm like a living heartbeat, the blade keening on its own, a raw cry of tea. Hers too long bottled up, so he hadn't imagined it after all. Years ago, when His Majesty learned the Clearwater Sword had strayed, he gave me this saber. He said it could help quell spirits in the ghost wastes, and at the least, laid beside the sword, it'd muddle anyone trying to sense which one's will was radiating. Astan, din for a time. Eilian's smile was wry. No one ever stopped to think, why would His Majesty hand a blade to a house of swordsmen? There's a reason, of course. Kaelan caught on, so that was how it was. Then, Senior, you clearly still need this blade. I can't take it. Eilian's smile thinned. After today's mess, do you really think anyone will dare scheme after the Clearwater Sword anytime soon? The danger's past. And more to the point, I can feel the Dragon-Sparrow aching for a fight. Leave it to rot in this little chamber, and its spirit will wither too. That would be a crime against a heavenly treasure. Aching for a fight. Again, Kaelan's mind lurched with the thrum of that blade-caged beast, catching the scent of blood. He let out a breath. It's true, the thing is restless. It doesn't want to sit here another moment. If it acknowledges you, that's karmic luck. Surely you're not standing on ceremony now. Senior, it's not ceremony. I'm deep in love with this blade. Kaelan's brow furrowed. But its killing aura is razor sharp. You can sense it a mile off. Anyone would peg it as a treasured weapon. The way I am right now, I'd be like a child hauling gold through a crowded market, calling disaster from every alley. No freedom left at all. If I had to slap on some copper scabbard or something, it'd be clunky and useless, and the moment I drew it, still every greedy eye would latch on. You've galloped 1,000 mil. Ease down a wild guess. Eilian chuckled, hiding a treasured blade's killing aura. There's more than one trick for that. A simple daub of an alchemical paste would serve. Why in the world would you need a copper hull? That's for nurturing the spirit. A jade hull works even better, but it's too pricey and brittle for everyday use. Jade caskets, on the other hand, those are common enough. Kaelan's face went blank. I'm an uncouth fool. Forget I opened my mouth. Eilian had been quietly brewing tea the whole time, and now she couldn't hold it. A laugh burst out of her. So if you want to take it, that's easy. Eilian's voice was unhurried. Even its gleam and keen edge can be cloaked under the grime of age, made to look like a battered old wreck of a blade. No trouble for us. He tapped his cup's rim with a fingertip. The sound was feather, light, but to Kaelan's senses, a fine ash billowed from empty air, invisible yet dense. The ash gathered into mottled rust, scars of eons, settling layer by layer over the blade's keenness. No true art had been cast, but the imagining of that secret craft unfolded before him, a heavy stone scabbard swallowing every trace of killing intent, leaving behind only desolation. And in the study, the candlelight dimmed as one, and somewhere distant the Dragon-Sparrow let out a low, shivering hum. Eilian's tone shifted just slightly. But don't lean on this alone. The reason that killing aura floods out now is only because the blade hasn't yet yielded to you. Once you're its true master, it'll quiet itself. It might even warn you of lethal danger. That's the goal you should be chasing. Kaelan's interest was fully snagged. How do I become its master? Not yet. Eilian lifted his cup and blew across the surface, completely unhurried. Your strength isn't there. You share an affinity, true, but it'll at most accept you as a companion. True mastery lies far ahead. Train hard. Kaelan's mouth twitched. So you don't actually know what cultivation level it demands either, and now you're putting on a wise front. Why does it feel like you're desperate for me to haul this treasured saber away? Is it really just about keeping the blade from gathering dust? Eilian spoke bluntly. I'll be straight with you. I also want to send a message through this, to someone like Duskbloom, or to His Majesty. What goes on in His Majesty's mind now, even I can't guess. But when he hears you're roaming the martial world with the Dragon-Sparrow at your hip, he'll have to show some reaction. In Kaelan's head, Vale's words surfaced without warning. Compared to the Zyrax faction, the QE family's schemes were, after all, more human at their core. It was true. Their minds stayed shackled to Court and Jiang, who to bloodline and legacy. No matter how deep their plotting, they couldn't break that mold. If that's the case, this junior won't refuse. Kaelan set aside his politeness at last. I truly am fond of this blade. I've already had a few things added to it. Wait. Drink your tea. Qiana's delight brimmed over, and she hurried to fill both cups again. Eldest brother Jiang's thorn. God path had finally paid out its true reward. He'd earned this through blood, soaked struggle and brushes with death, not from swallowing jeers that a toad lusted after a swan's flesh. And this was a genuine treasured blade, meant to last a lifetime, leagues beyond that wine gourd in durability. From now on, whenever eldest brother Jiang gripped this saber, he'd think of Yanyong. That gourd could shatter any day without warning. He. Her cheeks were a wash of pink, and she didn't bother to hide it, thinking she'd never once looked at her old man with such approval. Kaelan took a sip of tea, set the cup down, and his expression grew grave. Senior, there's something I've wanted to understand for a long time, but never found the right moment. He shifted his address and spoke with weight. Uncle, the word fell, and the air itself seemed to hold its breath. Eilian's hand, holding his teacup, paused so fractionally it was almost unseen. His old face even seemed to flush a trace. Qiana blazed crimson clear to her throat, her eyes shining wet. Eilian lowered his gaze to the tea and spoke evenly. Mem, ask about this era, the previous era. What was it like, truly, and how did it fall apart? Senior, your line is ancient. You must know something of its start and its end. Heaven and earth had shattered and been reborn. Gods and Buddhas had scattered like ash. Yet humanity had crawled, stubborn, from the ruins. Only, most of what they'd carried had been wiped out. People explored secret realms, dug up relics, and cultivated anew, piecing together scraps of the era's lore. But how one ever reached the might of gods and Buddhas that knowledge was gone, Eilian set his cup down and laughed with a self-mocking edge. The world holds the King Kui family in awe, imagining we inherited some occult legacy from the previous era. That's far from the truth. Take this Bailuot, Shanti, no one can say if it should even be called Bailuot-chan.
All we know is there was once a famous tea by that name, so we slapped that label onto new brews. Most of the old noble houses operate the same way. Kaelan felt the insight click into place. These so-called ancient clans were mostly names borrowed long ago. Some ancestor surnamed Kiwi had simply settled beside Clear River and tied a borrowed elegance to the place. The fact that the King Kiwi family and the Jadestone royalty could stand as equals now, when they hadn't always been contemporaries, was proof enough. Eilian's voice was cool. A family's luster doesn't come from a title. This old man has never shied from admitting that. He turned to his daughter, his face darkening in an instant. Yan Yong, Kiwi Yana snapped to attention. Father, running away from home, consorting with ruffians, staining your reputation, dragging calamity onto us. You deserve severe punishment. Eilian's voice was iron. After Kaelan leaves, you'll enter Mount Hinder for half a year's confinement, and you'll take 10 strokes of the family discipline rod. Kiwi Yona's smile froze. Her pupils shrank, her backside muscles clenching. Even through her clothes, her skin prickled with tiny shivers.
Panic flared. What if it's only 3 months, and not 1 day less?
10 strokes, no. She grabbed her backside and jumped up. Eilian didn't budge, just lifted his teacup. Kaelan braced himself and cut in, You're hitting her bottom. Kiwi Yana's eyes shifted, and her voice suddenly oozed a coy thread.
If it gets ruined, it won't be tender anymore, won't be nice to touch. Eilian sprayed tea everywhere.
The cup clattered onto the table, hot water scalding his fingers. His knuckles went white, joints popping. He slammed his palm on the desk as he stood paperweight and brush rack jolted, ink splattering from the inkstone. He pointed a trembling finger at his daughter, coughing too hard to say a word. Kaelan quickly pasted on a placating smile. Strike me instead, let me take the punishment for her. Eilian erupted. What possible use is that bottom of yours? I warn you both. If you dare disgrace the family within 3 years, I'll cleave you with a single sword stroke. He flung his sleeves and stormed out. The gust from his sweep sent pages flipping wildly on the shelves, papers flapping noisily through the room. And for that remark, add 3 more strokes. Kaelan called after him, Uncle. The era's history isn't finished. If you want to read the texts, go look for that drafty padded jacket. Eilian's fury echoed from the distance. The study's right here. Can't you read them yourself? His footsteps faded fast, but his anger still bounced off the rafters. The 2 youngsters exchanged a glance. Kiwi Yana puffed her cheeks. I won't take the family rod. They dare beat me. I'll go raise hell over at Mother's. She was kept in the dark and cried for 2 days once I make a scene. Let's see father try to beat me. Kaelan tilted his head to look at her. Truth was, the girl only resisted the beating. She didn't seem defiant about the confinement. Deep down, she knew her recklessness had earned her punishment. Through this she'd grown up, but growing up meant he had to leave. He couldn't stay at the Kiwi family forever. By ancient Sword Lake, Frost's appointment still waited. The mist and rain of the martial world still called to him. Kiwi Yana bit her lower lip and stepped closer with a delicate poise, her hand pressing lightly against his chest. Eldest brother junked. Her voice was a mosquito's whisper. Kaelan's throat tightened. This was the study. Her father had just stormed out. Are you really leaving, I feel like there's still something I ought to send off with you. Her tone grew lighter, and the lighter it got, the more it seemed something was about to happen. Kaelan instinctively stepped back. Wait, your father, no, you're still young, 3 years minimum, Kiwi Yana lifted her head, a slick, teasing moisture gleaming in her eyes. I meant I should give you a horse. Father said you'd look perfect in fine robes atop a spirited steed, roaming the land. How could you travel without a horse? Kaelan froze. So, Kiwi Yana's gaze flashed. She lowered her head, her clothes rustling softly, her breathing slightly unsteady. Given eldest brother Jiang's reaction, tell me, what gift were you imagining I'd give? Kaelan was speechless, his face burning in an instant. They stood impossibly close. Her subtle fragrance slipped into his breath, her body heat radiating through the thin fabric. He averted his eyes, his atoms apple bobbing. Kiwi Yana stole a glance at him. Seeing his fluster, her own cheeks suddenly flamed, her heart pounding as if ready to leap from her throat. Still, a faint smile tugged at the corner of her lips. Gritting his teeth, Kaelan stopped dodging. He bent down and cupped her scorching cheeks in both hands. Yanyong, she trembled head to toe, shyness and joy detonating together, her heart racing as if about to explode. Seeing her so bashful, Kaelan said softly, Yanyong, I know what worries are sitting in your heart, but eldest brother, Jiang, truly likes Yanyong. Light flared in Kiwi Yana's eyes. Blazing bright, but Yanyong is far too young. He kept kneading her cheeks, his calloused palms grazing her delicate skin like kneading dough. We made a 3. Year pact, so let it be 3 years. What's so great about the mortal chart? Wait till I ascend the mortal chart, then I'll come to the Kiwi family in full splendor and see my tall, graceful Yenyong of that time. All right, inside, Kiwiana was so tickled she nearly burst, but she grumbled, "Liar, you said you liked this very Yenyong, that I shouldn't grow up." Kaelan chuckled. "Just don't let your brain grow up, let other parts grow a little. Pa, you're no good man." The little rabbit stamped her foot hard and twisted free of his cheek, kneading. Clutching her burning cheeks, she spun and fled. The rabbit-ear ornaments bobbed on her head, her hurried footsteps hammering the study's wooden floor. Thump, 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 fading into the distance. "The era records are on the top shelf, find them yourself." Kaelan straightened up and let out a long breath. He smiled wryly to himself, didn't dwell on it, and turned to pull that tome from Eilian's bookshelf. Leisurely, he started paging through. The Kiwi family's investigations into the epoch's secrets spanned generations, their annotations and deductions dense, cramming every page. The more he read, the more engrossed he became, his gaze turning solemn. Early the next morning, Kaelan rose from the guest quarters, dismissed the maidservants, and practiced his blade for less than half a shichen. "Zhao, eldest brother Jiang." Zhao, eldest brother Jiang, the little rabbit who'd fled in panic yesterday, came bounding back, full of pep. She'd shed the light green dress and was back in that fluffy bunny-eared outfit, hopping and skipping like a tireless little beast. Kaelan turned to look and nearly wrenched his neck. "Why are you a rabbit again?" Kiwiana grinned, sidling up. "Zhao, eldest brother Jiang, clearly likes Yong. Yong this way. Every time you see me like this, your eyes crinkle. I like both, but spring's almost over. Aren't you roasting to death in that?" "Kingaming hasn't even passed yet." "Don't you know about the spring chill?" Kiwiana snorted, grabbed his hand, and dragged him out. "Come on, to the horse ranch. I heard they've got a few new fine horses I haven't seen yet. I'm taking Zhao eldest brother Jiang to take a look." Kaelan sheathed his blade. Dragged by that small hand, his feet unconsciously fell into a bouncing, skipping rhythm. Her energy was just too infectious. The horse ranch lay far outside the city. A great river surged, boats drifting along it. The grassland stretched boundless along the riverbank. Riders spurred their horses into swift gallops. Farther out, where the wind bent the grass low, herds of horses roamed at ease. Kiwiana dashed into the meadow, shouting, "This is my family's ranch." Kaelan gazed at the river and recalled something she'd once said. "My family has a river." Not that her home bordered a river, it was literally, "My family has a river, Uncle Wang, Uncle Wang." Kiwiana tugged at the elder standing at the meadow's edge. "How's my black peony? I've missed it so much." Uncle Wang chuckled. "A few days back, we acquired some fine Western region steeds." "They're thinking of mating black peony." Kiwiana's eyes bulged. Mating. Black peony's still young." Uncle Wang glanced at Kaelan and said nothing. "Young miss, do you now grasp your father's feelings?" The two young ones both flushed with embarrassment under that look. Kiwiana stamped her foot. "Take me there." "What crooked-mouthed, withered specimens dare mate with my black peony? I won't allow it." The elder didn't dare say more and led them to the horses. Kaelan had figured, given Kiwiana's little, white, rabbit personality, she'd favor a white horse. But when they arrived, a horse with a coat of pure snowy white, stunning as a unicorn, scurried right up to greet them. Kiwiana threw her arms around its neck. "Black Peony, I missed you so much." Kaelan just stared. "You call this white horse Black Peony, why not call it Black Pearl?" Kiwiana turned, saw his face twitching, and giggled. "Zhao, eldest brother Jiang, why the twitch? Why'd you give a white horse that name?" "So I could see that exact look on people's faces, ha ha ha." Kaelan muttered, "Grass. The world." D had barely left his mouth when a chaotic clatter of hooves erupted behind them. Someone shouted, "Young miss, careful. This horse's wild nature isn't tamed yet, we're still running it free. Careful it doesn't startle you." Kiwiana turned, her eyes lighting up. A steed of pure jet, black luster, charged at full speed, its mane flaring like splashed ink. Every inch of it was black, except for 4 hooves stark as snow, striking the grass with a thin frost, like tread. Muscles bulged and surged with raw, unruly power. Several riders thundered after it, swinging lassos and shouting themselves hoarse. Kiwiana snatched Kaelan's arm. "Hey, hey, Zhao, eldest brother Jiang, you like it." Kaelan's brow tightened. He had no eye for horses, but judging by looks alone, that had to be a snowsteed onyx. "Snowsteed onyx, fine name." Uncle Wang's voice boomed with approval. "This horse hasn't been named yet." "Then from now on, it's Snowsteed Onyx." Kiwiana dragged Kaelan forward. "I'll take Zhao, eldest brother Jiang, to tame a horse." "Hey, tame what horse? I can't even ride." "It's dead simple." Kiwiana vaulted, a clean sharp flip, and landed steady on the galloping horse's back. The riders behind burst into cheers. As the steed swept past Kaelan, she leaned down, grabbed hold, and pulled. He used the momentum to twist around and settle behind her. The black horse bolted, hooves flying like wings, tearing off into the distance. The riders stared at each other, then reined back their pace with unspoken understanding. This man, broad daylight, had his arms wrapped around the young Miss's waist, and her face was flushed, glowing with delight. Who in their right mind would barge in now? The black horse bucked left and right, hurling itself about like a beast gone mad. Kaelan's legs clamped its belly, the force of iron pincers tightening through his robes. One arm fastened around Eilian's slender waist, swallowing her whole in his hold. Eilian, who should have been taming the horse, went so limp that every bone seemed to melt. Her spine, through thin fabric, pressed hard against Kaelan's chest. The thud of his heart pierced the cloth, drumming into her back again and again, and his scorching heat surged from behind, engulfing her like a tide. She nearly collapsed into it. "Zeesh, our eldest brother Jiang, you're holding me so tight, I've got no strength." The black horse's forehooves reared, its body snapped nearly vertical, ready to hurl both riders to the dirt and let the dogs feast. Kaelan's blood fired hot. He freed his right hand and threw a punch straight at the horse's head. His sleeve tore the air with a wail, and his fist crunched solid against the side of its skull. "Other guys take a girl for a breezy little spin. I take a girl out and you won't even give me face. What the hell are you bucking for? Settle down." The black horse got hammered sideways, slobber spraying, shrieking in pain. It went berserk, leaping and plunging wild. Kaelan's left hand, Death, gripped the mane, his legs squeezed harder, and his right fist struck again. "Still acting up. Keep jumping, and I'll beat you stupid." Fist after fist met flesh. The horse's muscles convulsed, hooves thrashing in ragged chaos until under Kaelan's crushing force, it gradually stilled. Heaving rough breaths, it dropped its head and began to pace slow along the riverbank. The river breeze lifted strands of their hair, brushing Eilian's upturned face. Grass waves rustled in soft whispers. Kaelan panted and looked down at the girl in his arms. "Hey, is it settled now?" Eilian tilted her head back, eyes sparkling. "Zhao, eldest brother Jiang claims he can't ride, but turns out he's a born horse-tamer." Her voice, soft and shredded by the wind, scattered into the grass. "Look how docile it is now."